actually everything I do behind the blocks or walking out is always there's some reason behind it. It's not just because I'm being, silly or quirky. Unless that is the reason. That's just a valid reason because uh, I'm doing this professionally now, so it's my job and I want to have fun with my job. So if that's what I think it's going to take to have fun, then I'm going to do it.
Welcome to Champions Mojo Weekly Podcast, where your hosts Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker share with you what it takes to be a champion. Kelly is a former Division I head swim coach, Olympic trials qualifier, and holds Masters World and National swimming records. And Maria holds world records in endurance cycling and was the overall women's winner of the world's toughest bike race, Race Across America. They'll be sharing their personal stories and wisdom, along with interviewing other champions to give you the tools you need for becoming a true champion in your own life. And now, your host, Kelly Pallas.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast. I hope everyone is ready to have some fun today and get an interesting tool for creating greater success in your life, whether that's in athletics, work, or some area you need help in. We are going to be talking about alter egos or avatars for success. We also have an expert guest on this topic, one of USA Swimming's national team members, a 2018 Pan Pacs medalist, a multiple-time NCAA All-American and school record holder at the University of Louisville, none other than Zach Harting. Zach is an expert on alter egos to help his performance, so we're looking forward to talking with him on this topic. It is fresh and an area of untapped potential. But before we talk to Zach, let's bring in my co-host, Maria. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Kelly. Yeah, this is going to be fun and valuable. I was so interested to find out about all the different performers, from athletes and CEOs to politicians and entertainers that use alter egos or avatars. But first, let's check in on what an alter ego is. Simply put, it's a secondary personality to the one we have, and an avatar is defined as an incarnation, embodiment, or manifestation of a person or idea. Either one of these definitions work for our purposes, which is to step out of our usual persona and step up to perform better. So let's welcome Zach to the show.
Zach Harting, welcome to the show.
We're so glad to have you, Zach.
It's great to be here.
So you are our official guest expert on using alter egos and avatars, and you're probably most famous in this avatar alter ego world as wearing your Batman or Dark Knight costume to behind the blocks at Olympic trials. And I want to say for our non-swimming listeners that are following this, Zach didn't just finish 123rd and could just write this off and not be an Olympic contender. But Zach Harting is a huge Olympic contender, finishing 7th in that race, right, in our Olympic trials, which is phenomenal. I mean, to just make the final of an Olympic trial meet is incredible. So this was not like, oh, this meet doesn't matter, I'm going to throw this meet away. You're in the final at the Olympic trials, and you walk out in this great Dark Knight outfit. So just give us a little background on that.
So kind of started, I was younger and I kind of had a smaller kind of Dark Knight mask, and I had like a cape from Halloween, and I walked out that a couple times. And I guess I kind of started as when I first started making national meets and people were talking about the ready room. They said it's super intimidating, and so I was like, well, I don't want to get intimidated before my race, so I'm going to go in there and be ready to mess with people and play the mind game side of the ready room. It's not actually as bad as people think it is, but that's how that was pitched to me. And it was like this whole big thing, and I was like, well, if we're gonna play games in the ready room, I'll play games in the ready room. So I kind of walked out a couple times at a couple other national meets in terms of walking out in the Batman stuff. But at Olympic trials, I was actually originally going to Healy out the shoes with the wheels on the bottom, and I was going to do that. But once I got there, I realized that the flooring wasn't slick enough for that to work, so I had to call an audible, and that was the Dark Knight stuff. And so I had this progression. In prelims, I just wore my yellow Crocs, and then I was like, okay, if I make it to finals, I'll wear my Batman towel that has like a hood on it with my mask. I made it to that was semis. So I made it to semis, so I got to do that. I was like, if and only if I make finals, then I'll bring out the full onesie. So I brought the full onesie, and I'm in the ready room of that meet, and it's pretty tense. No one's really talking. All the people there were very significantly already highly established national teamers. Michael Phelps, some of you guys might know that name, was there. So, and a couple other people that he was friends with were there. And then there's like me. I knew who they were, but I was pretty sure they had no idea who I was. So I was kind of the oddball out there. So, and I'm also dressed up in the Batman onesie at this point in time. So, again, never really talked to these guys before or hung out anything. Walk out, go to lane 7, which was actually where I swam all of my races there. And then the announcers, when he called my name, called me the Dark Knight for the first time, and the crowd just erupted. And that's the first time that the crowd's ever gone like super crazy for me. I think the crowd might have been just as loud as when he announced Phelps. It's like that. I wasn't really ready for that, so I was like a little taken back, and I'm like, you know what? No, that's cool. That's cool. And then I got to swim my race and dropped a little bit more times from semis and finished 7th. So
Yeah. So do you think that you used that energy from the crowd and you dropped time, you kept getting faster to go again? I can't express to listeners how difficult it is to get into the final of an Olympic trials here in the U.S. In fact, we always say if you're in the final of an Olympic trials in the U.S., you would probably make 20 other Olympic teams around the world because, we're the most competitive country. So tell us, what benefits you think that kind of channeling the Dark Knight or Batman does for you, both racing and training?
that's a good question. So I'm looking back on it now, and I'd talk to our team sees a sports psychiatrist or I forget her exact title, but she comes and talks to the team and helps us handle and deal with our mental game, because that's just as important as the physical part that the coaches do a very good job handling. But if your mind's not right, then your race is going to be for nothing if it's not screwed on right. So especially I've noticed that with myself. So looking back on it, I've realized that using the Batman, especially at trials, was kind of a distraction technique, and it allowed me to focus on doing the Batman, doing something stupid, doing something kind of fun and quirky that I thought people would genuinely enjoy, the crowd, and I think that they did. And it didn't. It allowed me to not have to focus on the fact that I was in the ready room with Michael Phelps, all these other national teamers. I was about to have a shot at making an Olympic team for the first time at age 18, which has been my goal ever since I started swimming. There's a bunch of pressure there, and it was my first time being in that situation, and so I think there's a lot of nerves, and I think if I hadn't done the Batman, I would have let some of those nerves get to me and kind of thought through and focused on some of those things I shouldn't have been focusing on, and that are taken away from the energy of my swim. And so focusing on and doing the Batman thing allowed me to kind of sidestep and avoid all of those nerves and all the pressure that kind of came with that, and kind of loosen up and relax in order to swim my race.
That's great. It sounds like you've been channeling the Dark Knight for a long time in your swimming. When did you first, say, oh, I'm going to be Batman when I go out there?
Probably 15 or 16, and then I haven't really done it a whole bunch since trials. I did it the year after that, but it didn't have the same effect. So I only really bring it out when I think it's going to help my swimming. Actually, everything I do behind the blocks or walking out is always there's some reason behind it. It's not just because I'm being silly or quirky. Unless that is the reason. That's just a valid reason because I'm doing this professionally now. So it's my job, and I want to have fun with my job. So if that's what I think it's going to take to have fun, then I'm going to do it. But I've done a couple of different things. I took a baked potato behind the blocks before. It was from Wendy's. There was nothing on it, and by nothing I mean it was a baked potato wrapped in aluminum foil. And so I was like, "Hey, you want a bite?" I was like, eating like a hot dog in there. But that's because I had a migraine earlier that day, so my coach wouldn't let me eat anything, and thinking I might potentially be sick and throwing that up. So she only let me have a baked potato before the race, and so I was like messing with that. Went to an Irish meet and walked out in an Irish kind of leprechaun hat. They loved that. I thought that was pretty fun too. Those are just kind of little distractions that kind of we have fun with it and loosen up.
So the Batman character is, it's really strong and successful, and yeah, he's got a lot of dimension to his personality. Do you think about those characteristics when you put that costume on, or when you think about even putting on a leprechaun? Are you thinking, what are you channeling there?
I first started watching, my favorite, obviously, superhero is Batman. Favorite trilogy is the Christopher Nolan series, and so I grew up, into high school really watching that, getting big into that, and there was a couple different ways I noticed like he handled himself in different situations, and that kind of like really resonated with me, and so that's why he's my favorite superhero is because of the way he does things and the reasons why. And
What can you be specific? Like,
yeah, in the second movie, he's trying to make a decision on whether he should inform the public of who he is and let him know that he's Batman. This is after Harvey Dent's got arrested, or right before Harvey Dent takes the fall for being Batman, and he's like, he's sitting in the chair in his apartment, and he's holding the mask, looking at it, and he's like, "What should I do, Alfred? I think I'm gonna turn myself in to save all these innocent people." And they're like, Harvey and everyone else here believes in you and the work that you're doing and what Batman stands for. And if you go and turn yourself in, then that's all going to be for waste. So he had to endure in that and not do what he wanted, but had to do what he had to do. And so doing what he had to do, sometimes we have, as athletes, and I guess people in general too, have to do things that we don't necessarily want to do, but we have to do. So being able to take the emotion out of it sometimes is really important, and knowing when to do that, because sometimes feeling is necessary in order for great performances, but knowing when and how to just be like, okay, we're going to go get this done is, I think, what's important. And so there were a couple of times over the course of my life where I was like, okay, don't want to do this, don't want to be like this, but we got to do it. And so that's the reason I liked Batman. And then it was just a matter of he was my favorite, and that's who I wanted to portray walking out at Olympic trials.
And so I read somewhere, maybe during a set of 10 400 IMs, you were channeling or saying that your superhero is going to come out. What do you pull from there? And it's like a hard set.
Okay, yeah. So that set was 10 400 IM's long course. I believe it was a Thursday morning. It was the summer before my freshman year. I remember exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
I was pretty new to the team. I'd probably been there, 2, maybe 3 weeks. So I was still trying to kind of find my groove. I was kind of being kind of quiet. I was I'm pretty loud, obnoxious guy at practice, high energy. So I was kind of quiet, kind of like still trying to fit in and see like how things were done, pay attention. It's like 10 400 IMs, and every third one is fast. And I was like about to push off the wall. I'm like, I'm gonna take this one down like the Avengers took down Ultron. And I went and, like right after that, I was like, I left. And so it was really just for the people behind me just to be like, and the coach was just, but it's just like, well, if you're gonna take it down like the Avengers took down Ultron, like they messed him up pretty good at the end. So it's also just kind of, it's just a good mindset to be in of I'm gonna go attack this and get it done versus it's a 400 IM Thursday morning at 7 a.m. going fast. Like 10 400 IMs isn't a set that makes you feeling very good afterwards. Just the mindset and just trying to contribute to the team energy there is what I was going for there, and just kind of just trying to be fun and quirky.
That's something that I notice about what you're saying that I hadn't really thought of before. It's not just what you're channeling, it's what you're trying to how you're interacting with other people on your team and how you're trying to bring this energy to the team. I think that's an aspect of avatars that I hadn't really thought about. That's really cool. Can you talk about is that an important aspect of it to you?
Yeah, the mood of the at practice is with the group that you're training with is probably one of the most important things at practice. And so sometimes like you get the set and you all know, you see the look on your face, and your face is like, God, crap, like this is gonna suck. And so they can either go one or two ways very quickly, in a matter of a couple of seconds. Is this is about to be a bad set, we're about to suffer through this, or it's like okay, it's gonna be hard, but we're gonna have fun with it and we're gonna do it, and like whatever happens happens. And so like we talk about protecting the team atmosphere is just like a little sacred place. So what we at the team, what the guys on the team like to say pretty frequently, especially like we're out of breath, we're like trying to suck as much air down our windpipes as we possibly can, and we look over and like, you tired? And you're like, nah, dude, you tired? You're like, no, I don't get tired. So it's just kind of like when you're clearly exhausted and everything hurts. You can barely speak, but like that's what kind of what you're saying is like to each other, like, you're not tired, are you? Like, we don't get tired here. I don't know what they do at other teams, but here we don't get tired. So that's kind of like what we say to each other. And because if you can have a good practice, but if you're influenced by the negative atmosphere, negative talk from someone else, that's going to throw you off. And if you're doing underwaters, you don't want to hear about someone how much they're struggling, how much they hate it. Like everyone hates doing underwaters. You don't need that at that point in time. Maybe like 2 minutes after the set. Okay, sure, maybe. But protecting that atmosphere there is important.
Your potato and your leprechaun and especially your dark knight helps to protect that atmosphere.
And Ultron, taking Ultron down like the Avengers. So we, in interest of time, for the last question, Zach, what would you advise someone who's listening who may or may not be an athlete, but they want to use an avatar or an alter ego to kind of step up their performance, maybe at work, maybe in swimming, maybe in another sport? What you seem like you're a real expert. What advice would you give them to try it?
The most important thing when you choose something is to a point like you don't really pick it. It kind of like it's got to be something personal. It's got to really resonate with something that you believe in, whether it be morally, emotionally, physically, a mindset. It's got to be something. It's got to be super powerful and meaning to you in order for it to be effective. You can just really like how something's done, how he does things, how they look. It can be something, but it's got to really like resonate with you. It's got to be personal, and that's the reason why you have to like and enjoy it. And if that reason's personal, then you can use that at any point in time. I think that's the biggest thing. There's got to be a reason behind it, I think.
That's great advice.
Yeah, that's great. Authenticity. I love it. I love it. We've so enjoyed your expert advice here on this topic. We are going to totally be cheering for you and know that, 2020 is going to be a great year for you, Zach. And we really appreciate you being on the show.
We're
Awesome.
really grateful.
Thank you.
So, Maria, what a great, what an amazing young man. And, he is so forward-thinking and courageous and playful. I loved talking with Zach. What do you think?
I totally agree. He was super funny. Just awakened from a nap. It was cute to see him just coming up and his energy level coming up as he started talking about avatars and alter egos. Loved talking to him.
Yes, he's hard into the middle of doubles, and he had gone to morning practice and then taken a nap and woke up to talk with us, and so it was really great for him to spend the time with us. So, Maria, I felt like listening to Zach, we've been kind of excited about this topic, and then our talk with Zach was not our traditional swimmer interview, even though he is a super high level swimmer and has a very good shot at making our 2020 Olympic team. I feel like we wanted to talk about this topic because it really involves so much that can help us. And we love new tools. And we're like, yeah, this is going to be a new tool. So for me, the great thing about this, it involves play, which we all need more of. I think play is something that's missing from many people's lives, especially as we get into our more age and routines and work. And also it allows us to go to a place emotionally and psychologically that we may not be able to get to on our own. I think the reason you and I got hot on this topic is one of us, I don't know which one of us, read an article about Beyonce and how she channels an alter ego called Sasha Fierce before she goes on stage. She used to be a gospel, singer in a church. And so she was, a little Christian girl singing in the church, and for her to put on these, very cool, sexy outfits and go shake her booty on stage just didn't feel right to her. So she said she originally had to channel Sasha Fierce. So I think that's such a great example. Obviously, Zach's is a great example, which we heard in depth about, but some of the other performers out there, there's, besides another swimmer, Gary Hall Jr. did it. The Rock says he has an alter ego. Tiger Woods' real name isn't even Tiger. His dad named him Tiger so he could be a tiger.
Yeah, he gave him an alter ego.
He gave him an
That's
alter ego. Yeah. So what are some of your favorite alter egos out there in society, or things that you know that people have performed better?
Well, I love the Beyonce story. I think, it was, she was also sort of shy, and she needed, her name, Sasha Fierce, it gave her the courage to step up and do, to be that performer. So I think that's a great story. But I read about Bo Jackson, who incredible athlete, and apparently it can go both ways. We talk about Beyonce becoming Sasha Fierce, but sometimes an athlete can have too much of the fierceness or the competitiveness that it doesn't work well in the normal, world and normal circumstances or relationships. So I read that he had to sort of adopt, I forget what he called himself, but this sort of alter ego that allowed him to be very kind and gentlemanly in the world off of the field. And then he can be Bo Jackson on the field, the fierce competitor. And so, I think it's good to think about it going both ways. But I've seen this in action in my own life and in my kids particularly. I love this I have this memory of my daughter. This is many years ago. She was going for this important interview, and I was driving her to it, and she was in the car, and she was just a mess. Her shoulders were hunched over. She was nervous. She was sort of talking nonstop, and we got to the interview, and I'm giving her my little pep talk, but she gets out of the car. This is, I don't take any credit for this. She gets out of the car and she pulls herself up into this incredibly ramrod straight posture. And I could see her changing. She went from nervous little high school girl to CEO. I'm not sure what she was actually channeling, but she was becoming a different person. And she walked in there, and she slayed the interview. She got the scholarship. So I've seen it happen, even with my own kids, getting onto the sports field or becoming something different. So I love, I love this concept, and I've used it.
That was for the Moorhead Scholarship at UNC, right? Which she won.
That's right.
That is huge. I mean, that was a huge interview.
Right. I've seen her do it before too. She's a master, I think, of this. She's never talked about it, but without really being maybe conscious, she channels different personalities for different situations, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, I think we can, I believe in authenticity, and we've talked about that a lot. But channeling something or someone or concept different can help you sort of temporarily anyway, acquire skills that you might need for a certain situation. Kelly, I know you have channeled some alter egos.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm excited to use this even more, but I think if I think of a quick story, I probably channeled a mermaid when I grew up learning to swim on Lake Barcroft, and it's a huge, deep lake, 70 feet deep, and I was always scared to swim across it, but that was the goal, to swim from beach 4 to beach 1, which was a long way. And I would think that I was a mermaid, so I've done that. I've done that with swimming, just really thinking that I can breathe underwater, and I'm really good at swimming underwater, which is now I've learned very dangerous. They have shallow water blackouts, which us swimmers out there listening we're not supposed to hold our breath and swim underwater. But I used to do like 3 lengths of the pool underwater with no breath. And I would
because you're a mermaid.
Because I was a mermaid. That. Yeah. But I'm not a mermaid, but it was, but I've done that in swimming, mostly of thinking of swimming things. How about you, Maria? Because you've had to go to some really dark places with your athletics.
Yeah. I don't tend to use superheroes because I just haven't had that much exposure to them, or even people like things. I tend to use machines. And again, this is not conscious, but when I was doing Race Across America and actually training for Race Across America, the training was really tough. I was doing it because my sister had brain cancer. And so I would imagine myself as sort of this, each pedal stroke being sort of a mix master blender that I was tearing up brain cancer cells. I really got into that concept as I'm pedaling along, and the faster I went and the more I hurt, I felt like the stronger the blender was, and the more likely it was that I could destroy the brain cancer cells in my sister's head. And I also, the one that I use all the time, no matter what, I'm an endurance athlete, so I also frequently channel this concept of a locomotive. As a kid, I read the little engine that could, the story, the little engine that could. I think I can.
Yeah. I love it. Well, we were in different families, but we had the same story. Loved it.
Right. But I it wasn't really the little blue engine so much as the powerful locomotive. Right. I imagine myself as this black steel, unstoppable locomotive that can go through anything, and not necessarily fast, but will go up any hill and through any, forever and ever and ever. So I channel that a lot, and it's helpful to me. But I love the idea of deliberately doing it. I think I did it kind of unconsciously. So I love Zach's idea of literally putting on a costume to be something else. And I think if you can make these choices to put this on, it's really helpful.
Yes. And Maria, it's not surprising that your children got this from you, because you truly are when I think of you now, when I'm really thinking of your athletic career, you went from a non-athlete, totally, you married into our family who were a bunch of runners and swimmers, and then you just joined in. But when right, you're like the superhero that goes into the phone booth and comes out, boom, and opens your your costume, and you're wearing a bike outfit or a Boston Marathon qualifying time, and you are a completely, if people meet you right now, they're like, oh, this is the sweetest, nicest person, and you're just you're so gentle and sweet and engaging and lovely. And it's like, then the minute you get on the bike right now, I mean, you're training for are you doing the 12-hour race at Sebring?
12-hour, yeah.
So a 12-hour nonstop race, and you will be a locomotive, and you own the course record there, and you're feared. When Maria Parker shows up at a race, you're feared. And it's just it's just so, but it's true. It's so,
well, somebody has to teach you where the phone booth is. And I think that's what I hope this show will do. And then certainly it's what you did for me, Kelly. You taught me, okay, you can do this. You can be this thing that you haven't really thought of yourself. Because as I've told many people, I think I may have even told the story on the show. My kindergarten and first grade PE teacher called me a jelly bean. She said I had no, maybe I didn't have any muscle tone. I don't know, but she put in my head that I was a non-athlete, and I stuck with that until you showed me a new phone booth that I could step into and come out something different. And that's what I hope this show does for people. It's like, hey, this is a phone booth. Go in it.
Yeah.
Put on your costume. Come out and be whatever it is you need to be to deal with whatever it is you're doing.
I love it. I think, Maria, that's a great place to go to our takeaways. Takeaways. We've heard from you that your favorite section of our podcast is the takeaways. Thank you so much for that feedback. But before we get to the takeaways today, we wanted to ask you if you would please give us a 5-star review. That way, more people will be able to find our podcast. Also, if you could subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify, you'll never miss a podcast episode if you subscribe. And please share our podcast with your friends. And now, the takeaways. My first takeaway is that we need to play. That, when you are going to try to go into that phone booth and take on this alter ego, it needs to be fun, really fun. Like Zach said, he put on an Irish hat, like a leprechaun hat or something when he was in Ireland. And, he's having fun. And I think when we're having fun, we feel better. and I think our performance is better. And so think of it as something fun, not like a work thing that has to, so I think that's my first takeaway is make it playful.
I like that.
How about your first one?
Well, my first thing is obviously it's channeling what you're not. I think some people easily step into other personalities, but for some of us, that's really hard to do. And that's very hard for me to it feels fake and I like to be authentic. So, but in this concept of putting something on for the moment, for the performance, for the need, and channeling the characteristics of whatever it is I think that's a really powerful tool.
Great. So
And your second?
My second one is, it was probably my favorite part of the whole interview with Zach, was how do we choose this alter ego? And I am all about authenticity. And I really loved when we asked him, what advice do you give to somebody? It was, you got to connect with this. You've really got to feel it connects with you. And I love that authenticity. Like what have you I've always been enamored with mermaids. And I think a lot of little girls are, hence, all the mermaid things out there. But I really connect to a mermaid, and you've just got to be authentic. And Zach said he was into Batman from a young age, and he was really into that. So I think the authenticity part of it and really connecting to whatever it is important.
Yeah, I like that because it's kind of the opposite of what I said, which is channeling something that you're not. But what Zach meant and what you're saying is that, this should be something that you understand anyway, or that you've studied, or that appeals to you. So it might be like, I'm not this, but I want to become this, or in another life I'm this, something that you admire. And in that way, it's authentic. He'd always loved Batman. He was a Batman, aficionado. So it was easy for him to do that. But, I do love that concept of channeling something that you're comfortable with in a way because you know it. And then my second takeaway is, and I hadn't really thought about this at all till Zach mentioned, is this concept that when you become an alter ego, you're actually, you can raise up the team. So, and I think this is really true because when we see somebody acting like something else, it makes us laugh. It makes us feel a part of something, like people know who I am. So if I start channeling, for instance, a very gregarious or outspoken actress or something, that's going to make my family or my team or whatever laugh, and it's going to bring the team together. And I think that was one of the main reasons, and I love this about Zach, that he wanted to, he felt his team family, was important, and he wanted them to laugh and to be together and to be close. So I love the concept of using avatars to bring people together.
Yes, protect the space. I love that training space that he, obviously he trains there at the University of Louisville with Coach Arthur Albiero, who's a great coach, one of our Olympic coaches.
And it's just a great interview we had with him too.
Great interview, and great Kelsey Dahlia was another great interview there. So protecting that space and also making people laugh. He did it at the 2016 Olympic trials, and I'm sure that in that ready room, he lightened some people's load, even though they're not his teammates. So I think you can really inspire. Even so, I just think when you step out of the box and you do something that's a little bigger than yourself, you're going to inspire someone. So
that's a good way to talk about it. Bigger than yourself. That's great. I like that term.
Bigger than yourself. So we're at our action items, and what are you gonna come out of this with, Maria? What action item are you gonna take?
Okay, so what I've thought about this a lot since we started talking about it, and for me, something that I need to channel more in my life is what we call the honey badger. There was a kind of a vulgar video meme out a few years ago about the honey badger, and he didn't care about anything. He'd get bitten by a snake and he didn't care. I mean, it was just kind of a funny thing. And we laughed because my husband can definitely, he's not a honey badger usually, but he can definitely put on his honey badger. And so that's something that I'd like to channel more in some difficult situations. If I'm negotiating something, not to be mean, but just to not care what people think or worry about things, but just to do, just to go and do the thing that I want to do or that I need to have done. So I'm going to work on channeling the honey badger, particularly in some negotiations that I'm doing right now.
I love
it.
What
about you, Kelly?
That's a great one. Well, I am going to admit that one of my guilty pleasures is a series on Netflix called The Flash. And, he's a superhero and I love The Flash, but I'm not channeling The Flash, but one of the characters on there is the ice Killer Frost. So Killer Frost. She is a beautiful scientist and she's very mild-mannered in the lab. She works with the Flash and making him more productive as the Flash. And then her alter ego is Killer Frost. Now, the reason I want to channel this is because we're training in Florida in an unheated pool. Like, it's just where I like to swim right now. And yesterday the water temperature was 64 degrees.
Ooh.
So, but I did my whole workout in there because I was channeling Killer Frost and just enjoying the cold and using the cold. And of course, I'm also channeling Lewis Pugh.
Of course.
We interviewed too, because I'm like, Lewis would laugh at us if we were saying.
He's the guy who swam at the North Pole. So yes, he's got it down.
64 degrees to him is probably like bath water. But anyway, so my action item is to use this avatar of Killer Frost and just feel like when I'm swimming in these really cold temperatures that it's just, this is my alter ego and that I love this frosty swimming. So that's mine.
Do you get warmed up after you're in? Or
No,
is it cold the whole time?
No, it's cold the entire time.
Oh my God.
It's cold the entire time, but I'm getting a good workout and there's so many benefits. I'm a cold shower girl. Mm-hmm. So, and if you Google, 12 benefits of a cold shower, it does everything from boost your immunity, anti-inflammatory,
so you think of it as being good for you beyond your workout.
Beyond my workout, but there are a lot of things that are good for me that I can't force myself to do. And this I can force myself to do because I truly will channel like there's tons of also if you Google ice superheroes, there are like 10 of them. So there are plenty to channel for an ice superhero, but the series Flash is really good, and Killer Frost is a really cool character, and so that's my action item is just to channel that because I hate being cold anywhere, so I can channel it more. Like, if I'm out on a hike, which I do in the spring in some colder climates, and I'm cold, I hate being cold, but now I'm not. I'm embracing that. And another person is the Iceman. Wim Hof is another guy that, hikes in sub-zero temperatures and he's barefoot and naked. So anyway, enough on the ice princess stuff, but that's my action item. So
I love it. I think that's
so
great.
I think go ahead.
It's something, whatever difficult thing that you have to do, see what you can channel. I think we should encourage our listeners to, see what you can channel to get through there. I was just talking to somebody yesterday who had a difficult negotiation, and we were talking about what avatars he could be. So
Maria, can you believe that this is episode number 48?
Wow, 48.
Yes.
That's a lot of great conversations, Kelly.
It is. It's been really fun, and so we're super looking forward. 49, we are going to have Nathan Adrian, and then our 50th is kind of a special edition for Valentine's, and it's going to be love and performance. So we hope that you guys will keep listening and be on this journey with us. We really are, we're really enjoying it. We hope that you are too. And Maria, I love you so much, and thanks for all your help. All right.
Love you
to you
too,
soon.
Kelly. Okay. Bye-bye.
This week's quote of the week comes to us from Zach Harting. Sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. Being able to take the emotion out of it is really important, and knowing when to do that, because sometimes feelings are necessary for a great performance. You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast, designed to make you feel inspired, motivated, and educated. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Also visit championsmojo.com to learn more.